Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you saw on the top, I have Trinity Paracryptid Research. His link is on top in blue, and we're going to welcome him in a few seconds. I'm going to say hi to a few people in the chat first. So I have Barbara Ann. I've got Eric Zen, Gary. I also have Laura. And I also have Brenda. Hello, sister. I have Bama. Hello, Bama. Okay. So, guys, please, I would like you to say hi to my friend Tex from Trinity Paracryptid.
How you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on. I enjoy doing this kind of stuff.
Okay. So tell me, your channel name is Trinity Paracryptid Research.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you come up with this name for your channel?
Pardon me. It was a long process. Our mutual friend Amy knows that story very well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It took me a long time and a lot. I think at one time I had close to 50 possible names I was going to name it, and none of them just reached out and grabbed me,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was being really cool, and I thought I was making up a word when I combined paracryptid. But when I did a search for it on YouTube, there's several channels that have paracryptid in it. But that was okay.
Yeah.
But the Trinity,
Yeah.
the Trinity part, it's multi. It's got multiple meanings to me. One, I'm down here close to the Trinity River.
Okay.
Two, in my logo, you'll notice it's got the Trinity knot, the Celtic Trinity knot. I've got Celtic heritage, and the Trinity knot to me represents the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and it also represents my three kids. So it's got a lot of personal meanings to me. When I first came out with it, I took a lot of heat because everybody was calling me a pagan and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, no. It ain't like that. To me, sometimes a symbol is what it means to somebody personally.
That's right.
Not just because it's. Now I kind of draw a line at the whole 666 and everything like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the story behind the logo.
Okay.
Even developing the logo, the visualization, visualization of is that right? The physical logo.
Yeah.
The original logo, Amy did it. She took it out of here and put it on, digitized it. Is actually right here.
Okay. Let me see if I can put you bigger.
Well, you know what? Hang on. I can do this. So that's the original logo.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's the one Amy made.
That is awesome.
And then we loped on for that one for a while. And then I recruited or talked into or conned or fooled or however you want to look at it. I got Jason McLean on board with me, and he's a very accomplished artist.
Okay.
And we got to talking about the logo and everything, and he redid it and came up with the one we have now, which is this one right here.
Yeah.
So, but we kept the spirit, the spirit of the original for sure, because Amy worked her butt off for that, and I loved what she did. So that was a pretty long journey just getting that done.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't have done it without her, and there's been a few others on board too since day one. One of my producers, CHELLE, Squatched. We became friends. We met when I was on the co-host of the BDRP.
Okay.
She was having some activity on her property, and we got talking about it. And then we started talking almost daily, and she was I talked her into coming on as a producer, and unfortunately she's taking a hiatus for health reasons right now. But and then we've got my executive producer that I've known for over 30 years, which is Bob Van Buren, which has got his own channel.
Yes.
Van Buren Variety.
Yeah.
And then we got Bigfoot Michigan Rob on board with us. Because I wanted to do a daytime show. And Rob had just sold his bar, was looking for something to do, had an experience, really is the only the second person that I know personally that has seen a Bigfoot vocalize.
Okay.
So brought him on board, and he's taken over producing duties since CHELLE is under the weather, but he's also co-hosting with me on Thursdays. So I've got a great team. I can't thank enough. We actually just won the award for best cryptid channel under 10,000 subscribers.
Yes, I saw that also.
I have the award right here. So that's our trophy.
Yeah, really nice.
Yeah, we're proud of that fact.
Yeah, for sure.
We can officially say that we are an award-winning channel.
Yeah, not a lot of channels can say that. And your channel has been up and running for how long now?
I first started it, I guess it was 2017 when I first started it by myself, I believe. Okay. I can tell you in just a second exactly how long it's been. Yep. June 18th, 2017.
Wow. That's good. And what's the content that we could find on your channel? Like, do you have main topics or?
There's a lot of different stuff. I mean, mainly it's cryptid stuff.
Okay.
But we also do field research. And we got our evidence, on there. But we're very stingy with research, with evidence, because we don't want to just throw up anything. There's not a lot of evidence that we post on the channel because we're such hard critics of our evidence. So, it's we're very selective on what we put out there.
Because you try to debunk it first.
Right.
And then if there's no debunking available, then maybe you'll put it out.
Yep. Exactly.
So you all have to agree on that. Okay. And you talk about, you do live streams we talk about Bigfoot and other paranormal cryptid stuff.
Yeah, we have 2 live shows a week. We do Texas Front Porch on Monday evenings at 6:30
Yeah.
Central, and then
Yeah.
and that's me and Jason, and we have guests, quite a few guests on, but we also do shows. It's just me and Jason, and we talk a lot about Bigfoot. We talk about Dogman. We talk about UFOs. We'll breach just about any subject. The only thing that I don't allow on my channel to be discussed is religion and politics,
Okay.
because it's not the place for it.
No,
I'm
that's
giving
true.
people a place to get away from all that. People get beat over the head with that on a daily basis. They don't need me to do it too.
Okay. And do you go Bigfoot hunting yourself?
Yep, I sure do.
Do you go on a regular basis, or it's just a lot of preparation?
Not as regular as I would like.
Okay.
I get out when I can. Of course, I have a day job. My research area is about a couple hours away. So when I go, I don't go for just a couple of hours and go up there. I'll go for minimum overnight.
Okay.
But when I try to go up there for 2 or 3 days at a time. So we'll stay out in the brush for 2 or 3 days.
Okay, like wild camping, they call.
Yeah, yeah. So,
okay.
But it's turned into, that place is so notorious for all kinds of activity, not just Bigfoot. I've had 2 sightings out there and a lot more encounters, but with the stuff that we've been encountering lately, we've had to narrow down what we call a Bigfoot encounter so much that I can't with all certainty say what else I've encountered out there has been Bigfoot. But a lot of paranormal stuff.
Okay. And how do you determine your destinations to go hunt and camp and stuff?
Well, pardon me, I'm getting over pneumonia. So
yeah.
Brown Springs in Oklahoma, just right across the Red River from Texas. I got brought into that area by another researcher, and he no longer researches there. So I kind of picked up the baton. That's my main research area.
Okay.
I've got other places that we are going to go. We're going to hit the Brent. We're going to, I go to New Mexico and do some research too. Not as often as I'd like. That's where I plan to retire to. But we're going to do some research around Lake Worth. We're going to do some on the Brazos River. And we got some other places in Oklahoma we're going to hit. I got invited to go to Montana. I've been invited to go to Florida, North Carolina, Kentucky, Louisiana.
Okay. And Canada, if you want.
Oh yeah. If I'm ever up there in your neck of the woods, I will give you a holler and we will get together.
Yeah,
so,
that would be fun. You can show up, because we have lots of woods here, forests, and they're creepy, and you get a creepy vibe just walking, even in the daytime there. Right. And there's these strange branches, yes, that are cracked. It's cracked way up, but and we don't have tornadoes here, so we can't say, oh, it's a tornado that ripped it, and right. And we would see it more in the spring. If the damage is on trees, it's because of the ice and snow we get. But they come back up, like after spring's over and we're totally into summer, the trees are back to normal. They're not broken in certain ways and stuff. So we have no explanation saying, oh, well, it's easy, it's a tornado or something,
Right.
Yeah. So once you're in Like you're in it there. You're hunting for a Bigfoot. What are the steps and materials that you need for this?
Well, I do a lot of. I mean, don't get me wrong. We'll cover some miles on the ground, but I've gotten my best results by letting them come to me
Okay.
because they seem to be very, very curious. And I do 90% of my research by myself. I think if I put myself out there, they don't think of me as a threat, and they'll tend to come up and get a little closer. In my experiences, if you hear a twig snap or catch something out of the corner of your eye, if you ignore it, they think they're getting away with something. They think they can get a little bit closer.
Oh,
So they'll just keep coming in.
okay.
That's been my experience. So, like I said, I've had 2 daylight sightings.
Okay, because this is a question that I got from the chat right here that goes with what you're about to say.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw 2 of them, or 2 times during
Right.
the day.
Right. About 8:30 in the morning was my first one. We had just gotten into the research area and just gotten out of the truck. In fact, it was my first time up there, and I was standing beside my truck and just got out. Was looking around, taking the lay of the land, trying to get my bearings because I'd never been up there before. And D was getting stuff in his stuff, camera and stuff ready in, on the other side of the truck. And I'm looking through it, and we were on a dirt road, leads down to a campsite, and there's a little tree line about 15 yards thick. And on the other side of this tree line was a wheat field. It was pretty mature. The wheat field was probably about 3.5, 4 feet. And I'm just kind of looking around, looking through this tree line over in this wheat field, and this Bigfoot pops up out of the wheat field, stands up, looks around, and takes off running down to the river, towards the river. And I saw him from about his hips on up, and then they had a fire break mowed around the wheat field. So I got about 2 steps of him from head to toe. He was solid black, probably 7.5, 8 feet tall. He didn't have a pointed head. He had the rounded head. He was about 75 yards away, but there wasn't no mistaking what I saw. He ran into the tree line, disappeared. My second sighting, he followed us too. We went on down into the bottoms and were walking down the floodplain, and he was shadowing us. We could hear him up on the ridge, and we would get a tree knock, and then we'd walk a little further, and then we'd get another tree knock. It was like, I think what he was doing was ushering the troop in front of us so we wouldn't walk up on him. That's my theory.
Okay.
My second daylight sighting, was just several months ago. It was me, Jason, and Bob. We were all out in the field. It was their first time out there. And no, it was Jason's second time, Bob's first time. And it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We were waiting on Amy and them to show up, actually. And I had my binoculars out, and we're standing in the campsite. We're just kind of getting stuff ready. And I got my binoculars out, and I'm just scoping out the woods around me. And I see, I see this gray fur hugging a tree. He thought he was being sneaky. He was literally hugging this tree. And I said, okay, guys, look at this. I was all pretty excited and everything. But the thing about it is, it's a mistake I made, and you learn something every time you go out. You have to learn from mistakes. I did not have my binoculars on a tripod.
Okay.
Take a monopod or a tripod for your binoculars or your camera, whatever you're using. Because if you're trying to show somebody else what you're looking at, handing to somebody a set of binoculars and saying, "Look at this over there,"
doesn't work.
And they, which tree are you looking at? Well, there's only 100,000 trees out there. Which one are you looking at?
Yeah.
And by the time I got him back and zeroed back in on, he was gone.
It was gone.
Yeah. But
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you scared? Do you think they're dangerous?
I was more exhilarated than anything else, because I'm one of these people that it just irritates me when I'm watching these ghost hunting shows or whatever, and they find what they're looking for and they get scared and leave.
That'd be me. First one.
You know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know the risk.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't. I'm not going to go out there and then when I find what I'm looking for, I'm not going to turn around and leave. That's just me. Do I think they're dangerous? Well, let me back up. Was I scared? Neither one of those times was I scared. I was excited. Have I been scared? Yes, I've been spooked when I was up there by myself, more than once. But do I think they're dangerous? I think they can be. Like any other apex predator, you have to go in there with respect for what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I worry more about running into some other person out there that's up to no good, or running into a batch of pigs, because they're never up to any good, and they're very dangerous. So I worry more about that than I do the critters themselves. Now, my first ever experience when I was 16 was a dogman.
Oh.
And I saw him. He ran across the road in front of me on a white gravel road in the daylight about 20 feet away. So there was no mistaking what I saw. I've drawn several pictures. A couple of people drawn or has made renditions of what I told them I saw. I've got my rendition of what, drawn what I saw. I was scared then, but and I think I encountered him about 6 months later too, because it took me about 6 months to start going back out in the woods and stuff, because I was coming back from hunting when I saw him, and it took me about 6 months to get over that one. But the reason I started going back out is it's like I felt like I was being. I've said this a million times. I felt like I was being bullied. You're keeping me from doing what I love to do. And I just got mad. I'm not going to do this anymore. If he wanted me, there wouldn't have been nothing I could have done about it. He could have eaten me alive. He didn't. He just turned his head, growled at me on his way, and jumped over the fence and disappeared. So, and I've hindsight, looking back on it, talking to other people, stuff that happened around the place and everything, he'd probably been around there for a long time. I don't think these creatures, Dogman or Bigfoot, and I take a lot of heat for it, but I don't think either one of them are inherently evil. They're mischievous. Don't get me wrong. They'll mess with you, and they'll try to scare you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they're like, waiting behind every tree, just waiting to eat you. But we'd have a lot more reports of supposed bear attacks or mountain lion attacks that we do, because not all of those are mountain lion and bear attacks. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Here, Brenda says, I can't wait to take Tex hunting with me when he comes to NC.
Yeah, I'm planning on going to North Carolina next year. And, that's one of the things that we're going to do. She's going to, she's kind enough. She's going to take me out to a research area, and we're going to do some researching, and then and I'm going to spend the night out there. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. And for like, how should we call it? Bigfoot or Sasquatch? Is there a difference between the two?
Well,
Or it's the same name for one animal?
well, Bigfoot was coined back in what, 57, 58. Sasquatch, is an older name, by
Okay.
The Native Americans, and well, y'all have a Sasquatch. Y'all have a Sasquatch park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In British Columbia, if I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
Right.
Because there's an Indian tribe that their logo, they're worshiping prayers to a female Bigfoot. Well, they said that's what I saw on the documentary.
Right.
And like the little village is all decorated, and you can go visit. And she's spotted in the trails, like hiking trails, regular hiking trails in British Columbia.
Yeah, I also heard that when the press pushed on the government a little bit on how they decided why they decided to name the park that, instead of saying it was after the people, the Sasquatch people, the tribe, because that's the name of the tribe, right?
Yeah, there's something I can't come with it right away, but their name is in there,
right.
And the whole village, they have their wigwams there or something,
Yeah.
their totem poles and everything. It's all a Bigfoot face or whatever, and they say it's a female. So how can we tell the difference between a male and a female?
Well, same way you could tell with a naked human running around, I guess.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
And okay, so okay.
Because we've all seen, most people have seen the Patty film. That critter is obviously a female.
Okay.
She looks like she's heavy with milk at that point. Or she just is built very, very well, one of the two. But the reports that I've taken that people have seen them close up and got the full frontal, the full Monty version of it. Lipstick, high heels,
that'd be me.
skirt.
Okay.
But they said there's no mistaking it was a male. So
no, well, I never thought like maybe I knew they had a chest, but was it that obvious that it's a chest or something, so that's why.
Most reports I've taken that they've seen that part of them, there is no mistaking if it's a male.
Okay.
It's very evident. So
okay. Here, Jared has a question. Tex, in your opinion, do you think Bigfoot, Dogman, etc., could possibly be descendants of the
something prehistoric?
Prehistoric. Oh.
I think they're both ancient species. I actually have my whole Dogman theory laid out on my channel. And it's about a 10, 15-minute explanation because it goes back to ancient Egypt. It covers the flood and everything else. My opinion. It's just my opinion, guys. So there's a bunch of what ifs in there, but I think they're both ancient species. I think they've been around for a lot longer than we have. So prehistoric. I think they're a primitive people. Sasquatch, I think they're Bigfoot. I think they are a primitive offshoot of humans. They are a primate. We're a primate. So their intelligence level, I get a lot of questions about that. I equate their intelligence right up there with killer whales. And a lot of people jump on me about that. But I got to tell you, if you really look into the intelligence of a killer whale, you'll be astounded of what they, of their intelligence. So, and I think the research that we've been doing lately and what we've been finding out, we're actually, pardon me, we're actually making a distinction between Bigfoot, what everybody's calling Bigfoot, and what everybody's calling Sasquatch. Because it looks to me and to other members of my team that the Bigfoot or Sasquatch is an umbrella term for so many things that, you hear about, you have two sides of the Bigfoot camp, so to speak. You have the gorilla camp, you have the woo camp, which credits these creatures with having all these supernatural abilities, mind speak, phasing in and out, dimension jumping, portholes, the whole 9 yards. My argument is with people that that have mind speak encounters, and I'm not diminishing their encounters at all. I do believe they're having these encounters. My worry is it big? How do they know that it's Bigfoot they're talking to? And on every one that I've talked to, and I've asked that question, well, they told me it was. They told me they were Bigfoot. Well, anybody that does anything with the paranormal knows that you can't trust what a spirit says to you.
Right.
I mean, they're mischievous, they're tricksters, they're known to lie. So my worry is that maybe it's presenting itself as Bigfoot because it knows that these people are out looking for this. It knows that they're going to be open to this. And it's a way to get this entity to get its foot in the door into these people's soul. That's my concern. And I think it's a legitimate concern. All the stuff that you're seeing at night, the black shadows with the red glowing eyes, the tall black figures with the red glowing eyes. We're calling that another entity. We don't think that's Bigfoot at all. And I've had a lot of those encounters. And for a long time, I was on board. It was, these are Bigfoot. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm sure a few of them were, but something that just walks up and just disappears, I don't think that's a physical being. That's a supernatural being.
Yeah. Robbie from Unknown Adventures has a question. What would you do if you ran into a mountain lion?
Well, do my best to back out. You don't want to run because if you turn your back and you run, you trigger their predator instinct, and they're more likely to give chase and attack you. So you have to back out slowly. You can run them off. I'd like to avoid shooting one if I could avoid it. I've never heard of Bigfoot attacking. They seem to just want to get away. That there are reports of people being attacked, but I think these tribes or family groups, however you want to call it, troops of Bigfoot, are just like different tribes of people. you never know what interactions in the past that they've had with people. They could have been shot at. They could have been, all kinds of stuff. So maybe they're more aggressive. Maybe they were taught from a young age to the only good person's a dead person. Some people have the same theory about outlook on snakes. Only good snake's a dead snake. But oh, I'm sorry, guys. But so they have different personalities, just like you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And they have bad hair days, just like you and me.
Yeah.
So if you catch one of them on a bad hair day, he might be a little
They
more.
have lots of hair, so.
Yeah. A lot of people, a lot of reports I get, they automatically call them aggressive encounters if they get growled at or if they get bluff charged. Those to me don't add up to aggressive encounters. What that is to me, that is this creature's way of trying to make the encounter head it off and nip it in the bud before it has to become aggressive. They're trying to scare you away. They're not being aggressive. They're trying not to be aggressive. If you get bluff charged, you got bluff charged for a reason. They're trying to tell you to get away. If you get screamed at, growled at, heed those warnings. Leave. I'm not saying run. That's the last thing you ever want to do. But just leave.
Okay.
People normally only see the males. It tends to be that way. That more males are reported. Of course, I've heard females. I've heard babies. Everything. But for the most part, yeah, it's males, and it seems to be what we run into most are not the big alphas. It's the juveniles, the teenagers that are being mischievous, young ones. They're that are just trying to get as close as they can. I know one researcher calls it counting coup. So it very well could be. They're just testing their boundaries, seeing how, maybe playing a game, seeing who can get the closest or whatever, I do think we are their entertainment for their, like I said earlier, they from my experience, they tend to be very curious, but they have to be respected. So, it's, what else we got here?
This is mostly a statement, but quite informative. I was reading that.
Generally, Native Americans won't talk about Bigfoot normally to the white man. My aunt, who is Iroquois, won't really talk about it. When she lived on the reservation, she has seen and believed in the existence. That is true. That is very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just with Bigfoot. They keep their they keep their culture close to their chest. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
God knows the white man's taken enough from them.
Yes, and here, we have a tribe. It's called the Abenaki tribe, and they've been pushed way farther out than where they originally started, and that's for the eastern townships where I am. And on the south shore of Montreal, then you have another tribe that they seem to have declared a reserve just for them. And they're still and it's closed. They have like a border, you can't go. And they're called the Mohawk tribe. They have their own police there because there's like a bridge that passes on top of the reserve. So part of the bridge belongs to the reserve, and the police, they call them peacekeepers. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, since you mentioned tribal police, we were up in the research area, me and Amy and Jason and a few others. Bob, I believe, was with us. We were going up to the cemetery, which is very famous up there, and it's back. It's about 100 yards off the road, back in the woods. You have to walk up through the trees to get there. It's very unkept. It's unfortunately been disrespected, but it's very active up there with a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. But we were going up there one time. We just pulled up. We were just about to get out of the trucks. And next thing we know, we're surrounded by 5 cops. We busted. We had I think it was either 2. Yeah, I think it was 2 tribal police and 3 sheriff deputies. They were actually, they'd had a report that there was a group of women that was in a black SUV, and they were all dressed in black, and they were out there sacrificing chickens.
Okay.
So, and they thought, they were just checking to make sure we weren't them. Well, we ended up having about a 30-minute conversation with them, and they did tell me, one of the tribal policemen did tell me that they've had 2 officers on their force that have had Bigfoot encounters out there. So, I was very lucky, I think once they got talking to us, they felt kind of easy with us and everything. In fact, one of the other officer told me that he had a paranormal experience right there where we were at one point when he was younger. So they were very open to talk about that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we couldn't, bring them back to camp, spend all night talking to them. But
yeah,
we are in the process of trying to get back in touch with them and see if we can get a longer conversation.
Okay. Let me call here.
I've got family in Texarkana, which is up around Falk, Arkansas. And that place has been famous since the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek came out in the 70s. So, having relatives in that area, of course, seeing the movie, I've always been kind of interested in it, but I've never enough to go, oh, I'm going to go look for Bigfoot. Because at that point, you're still kind of in the mindset, and I was young anyway, that there's only one out there. When I was a teenager, I had better things to do. I was too busy chasing girls to worry about Bigfoot. And, then I went in the Army, and I got married, and I put all this stuff on the back burner. I just really didn't think about it. And I saw what really got me back into it was I saw people were actually talking about these experiences with what they were calling dogman. When I had my dogman experience, that term wasn't even around. The only thing I knew to call it was a werewolf. And they had, this new name was out there. They're calling it dogman. People were actually talking about it. Other people were having experiences with it. That's how I really got back into it about 5 years ago. And got into the active research and all that kind of stuff. So, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I've been out in the woods, and I was raised up, out in the country, and I trap and fish and hunt since I was 12 years old, by myself. Let's see, Tex, I heard Bigfoot is just a hairy human. Do you think that's true? I don't. Well, I don't either. I think they are an offshoot of the human species. Last count, I think they had admittingly found, 10 to 12 different species of human now that they're saying. So, the little people that were supposed to be a myth, they found evidence of those. So I think we're on a path to soft disclosure. is what I call it. Like just now, you're starting to see the government halfway acknowledge UFOs.
Yeah.
And that's, people's been seeing UFOs for a lot longer than we've been, talking about Bigfoot. And, out in the government's been dealing with it and everything. So I think eventually they're going to admit that it does exist. And I think it's going to happen in my lifetime. So, but we'll see. Dogman, I don't think they'll ever admit Dogman. I think what they'll do is, once they disclose Bigfoot, I think they'll use that as a poster child, and they'll go, people thinking they're seeing Bigfoot, Dogman, they're just Bigfoot with snout, and they were just misidentified. I think that's the way it's going to go. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay. And would you consider like a Loch Ness monster part of the cryptid society or among the stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Because we also have, it's not called the Loch Ness monster because that's, and they call her Memphre. They say it's a female, and she's in North Athley here in the Eastern Townships. And the river that she's in is really deep, and it crosses over to the US. Like they have cruises during the summer. You can cruise all the way down to Vermont and shop there and come back. And so that in that river somewhere, there's a legend story about, it looks like a Loch Ness monster, but her name is Memphre, and they're really proud of that. They have a plaque in the middle of town, and so that could be a cryptid story as well.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's just like Champ. You have, there's a lot of different cryptids out there. You have the Jersey Devil. You have Goatman.
Yes.
You have Bigfoot. You have Dogman. You have, the even the giant catfish are some people, they consider those cryptids as well, because a lot of it's based on, legend. So even go far as giant snakes, the Mongolian death worm. So I can't remember I can't never pronounce the name, Pinidingo or Pinigongo or something like that. It's supposedly a dinosaur down south in South America and the Amazon. So you have the Thunderbirds. You have pterodactyls. Okay. Jason McLean, my co-host, saw a pterodactyl or rhamphoid pterodactyl or something like that. I can't pronounce all these $9 college words. He can.
Yeah, they're big words.
Yeah, he had a sighting of one of a pterodactyl for lack of a better term. So these creatures are out there, and they're all under that cryptid umbrella. So
okay, so we can consider it like a cryptid story for the little town here. Okay, that's awesome. And if we're in the woods, like you said, and a branch flies right beside us, is that true that that's one of the warnings of a Bigfoot telling you to leave or something?
Well, I've had stuff thrown at me a lot. I think it depends what you get thrown at you.
Okay.
If you get, you can't be spooked every time a little branch falls off of a tree. That happens.
Okay.
But it's something, a good size limb, comes flying through the canopy. Yeah, you may want to find another place to walk around, If you have a good sized rock, get thrown at you, you might want to find another place. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, leave. Because there's, I've had the biggest rocks I've had thrown at me were about this big around. So I've had that happen twice. I've had pebbles thrown at me and another guy. Oh golly, for a few hours in camp. You would see the pebbles just flying through the trees, and he got in his hammock, and they even started hitting his hammock with him. So, I think if when in doubt, leave.
Okay.
I don't. We're talking about tree structures a while ago. I don't put a lot of faith in tree structures because one, the area that I go is flooded so often that you really can't. It's hard to say, oh, a Bigfoot did that. I don't think every time a tree is laying like this that it's a Bigfoot. Okay.
Okay.
With me, a tree structure, it has to be intricately woven together. It has to be. You have to take in the area. If there's trees that you can't find evidence of this tree anywhere else, and it was moved from another location and purposely put in a formation, or rocks stacked up, that's always a good. But how do you know it wasn't somebody messing with you? That's just it. In this, especially in the popular research areas that people go and other people research, those are really hard to, the one tree structure that I really found that really got my attention wasn't even a structure, it was a break, and it was a twist. Now this tree, I couldn't fit both hands around it, and I've got big hands, but it had been, and it was a live oak tree. It had been twisted until it just exploded. And it was just laid over. It just looked like somebody, it was about 3 feet off the ground. It looked like somebody just walked by and just went,
Wow.
And the thing about it is, we looked all around. We couldn't find any tool marks, couldn't find any vehicle sign, anything like that. It was surrounded by trees, dead saplings about this big around. None of them were broke. So unless the finger of God reached down there and twisted this tree, which I'm not saying that's impossible. That's the most impressive thing that I've seen as far as trees go with me. Let's see.
Okay.
What is your opinion? Do you think these creatures, Bigfoot, were a scientific experiment gone wrong? No, I do not. I think there's too many reports. There's too much evidence on, as far as the cave drawings, going back way too many years before that even became an issue. I don't know so much about Dogman but you could also say that, use this argument with Bigfoot too. I think it's possible that Dogman is I think they were a fairly dominant species at one point. There were more of them, and they were a lot smarter. That's why so many of them back in history, in the ancient history, have godlike representations. They're viewed as deities. So I think that I don't know where they came from. I really don't. Scientifically, I don't think they were made. I don't know. That's just it. There are no experts in this field, just like there's no experts in paranormal field either.
Yeah.
This is all speculation, and we're just trying to learn. And the thing about it is, I was talking about the gorilla camp and the woo camp. Until we can put aside our egos and take into account that it's a possibility that these creatures don't have these supernatural abilities, but it's also a possibility that they do, and we start communicating with and learning from each other with an open mind, we're not going to get anywhere. Because the Bigfoot community they will eat their own young.
Okay.
I mean, you know, as far as researchers goes, we love to throw each other under the bus. We can't do that if we want to learn more from you. We've got to use each other's information, but we've got to be willing to accept that maybe our ideas are not the right ideas.
Okay.
So I think we have to be a lot more open.
And do you believe I was going from chat to chat on Bigfoot, you know, groups and everything. And what came back a lot was that a Bigfoot hangs around a cemetery that's surrounded by woods. Do you think that is possible?
Yeah. I have a theory on that, and that's all it is. A hypothesis, however you want to put it. But I have a couple of ideas about it. Let me put it that way. Because you have a lot of dogman encounters and sightings. You have a lot of Bigfoot encounters and sightings around cemetery out in the woods. I think there may be a few. Okay, here we go. I think it may be possible that they're using that as a first line of defense, because your normal everyday person does not go poking around a cemetery at night. You know, I mean, in this small group that we have, this small circle of, you know, weirdos that we all are, that will go poking around a cemetery at night, we're the ones that are seeing this stuff. Your normal everyday Joe, they're not going to go out to the cemetery at night. They don't want to. So I think they see the lack of traffic, human traffic. Maybe maybe they think that that's a fairly safe place to be, because a lot of people don't go there. Or it could be that they recognize it as a sacred ground and they're drawn to it for some reason. I don't know. So there's my thoughts on it.
Okay. Well, guys, it already makes an hour that we're live. And I would like to say that Mark B, he's here in the chat. His premiere is going to start for 8. So let's all jump over to Mark B and rate him and say, Sandra Pink is sent to me here. It's a Sandra Pink raid. So head on over to Mark B's channel. Mark B, if you can, post your link, since you're doing a premiere at right now for 8 o'clock. On that note, guys, I would like to say thank you all for coming and have a wonderful weekend. And I'll see you all in your next videos and texts. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation. I really enjoyed it. Okay, bye-bye.